Here's something you've probably noticed in your workplace. The org chart keeps shrinking. There are fewer managers, fewer titles, and more dotted lines. It feels like the traditional ladder we used to climb has been replaced by a web. It's no longer about who you report to. It's about how well you can collaborate, influence, and get things done across teams. That's the reality of today's workplace. Companies are getting flatter. And while flatter structures sound exciting, fewer layers, more empowerment, faster decisions, they also come with something most people don't talk about: bigger expectations. Because when hierarchies disappear, you don't just lose titles, you lose structure, guidance, and sometimes clarity. So in this episode, we'll talk about why workplaces are flattening, how expectations for professionals have changed, and how you can thrive even when there's no ladder to climb. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Work Chat. Today we're going to talk about how you can not just survive, but thrive in a flat organization. But first, what does it mean when a company becomes flatter? A flat organization removes unnecessary layers of management. Instead of long chains of command, you have more cross-functional teams, direct access to decision makers, and faster feedback loops. Sounds efficient, right? But this shift isn't just about cutting costs or simplifying charts. It's about speed, collaboration, and empowerment. As work becomes more digital and interconnected, organizations need people who can think independently, make decisions quickly, and communicate directly without waiting for approvals that take weeks. Flatter structures make this possible. They give teams more autonomy. But here's the catch. Autonomy doesn't mean less accountability. In fact, it means more. When your manager isn't hovering or double-checking every detail, the responsibility to lead yourself, align with others, and deliver results, that's all on you. That's the trade-off of flatter organizations. You gain freedom, but you also gain ownership. Here's what many professionals discover once the hierarchy disappears. Without all those layers, you become the structure. You're expected to manage your time, your priorities, your projects, often without clear direction. You have to collaborate across teams that may not report to you, influence decisions without authority, and communicate with stakeholders who all have different agendas. So instead of having one boss, you suddenly have many. And this shift changes the definition of being good at your job. It's no longer just about doing your own work well, it's about helping others work better with you. In a flatter company, your success is measured not just by what you deliver, but by how well you collaborate, how clearly you communicate, and how effectively you align people toward a common goal. It's not enough to be great in isolation, you have to be great in connection. So how do you actually thrive when hierarchies disappear? Let's start with the first and most important skill: self-leadership. In a flatter organization, no one's holding your hand anymore, which means you have to learn to lead yourself first. You need to lead yourself the way a great manager would, with discipline, clarity, and accountability. That means knowing your goals, managing your energy, and setting boundaries that help you stay effective. If you ever find yourself thinking, "I wish someone would tell me what to prioritize," pause, then ask yourself, what's the outcome that matters most to the organization right now? Self-leadership starts with ownership of focus. You don't wait for direction. You create it. You don't wait for permission. You take initiative. And you don't wait for feedback. You ask for it early and often. The professionals who rise fastest in flat environments are the ones who show they can lead themselves, even when no one's watching. Moving on, in flatter companies, communication isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's your survival skill. Without layers of hierarchy, the way you communicate can either create alignment or chaos. When there are fewer layers, there's also fewer filters. You might be presenting directly to executives, coordinating across departments, or sharing updates with people outside your immediate team. And here's the truth. If you can't communicate clearly, you'll create confusion faster than any org chart ever could. So here's a simple communication framework that works in flat structures: clarity, context, and connection. Clarity: say what you mean, no jargon, no fluff. Context: explain why it matters. how it ties to the bigger goal. Connection. Make sure your message invites dialogue, not just direction. For example, instead of sending an update that says, the project's delayed because we're waiting for other teams to complete their tasks, you can say, the project's delayed because we're waiting on final data from marketing. Once that's in, we can close phase 1 within 48 hours. Any way to speed that up? That's clear, contextual, and connects the dots, all in one. The flatter the organization, the more clarity matters. Next, let's talk about a skill that becomes absolutely essential when hierarchies disappear: influence without authority. In flat organizations, you can't rely on titles to get things done. You have to earn influence through trust, consistency, and collaboration. That means your ability to influence depends on how much others believe in your judgment, consistency, and communication. To influence without authority, focus on these 3 habits. 1. Build credibility early. Follow through on commitments, share progress openly, and let your reliability speak for itself. 2. Frame ideas in shared wins. Instead of saying, here's what I need, try, here's how this helps us hit our shared goals. 3. Be generous with recognition. Visibility is a two-way street. People support those who make them feel seen. Influence in a flat structure is not about pushing harder, it's about connecting better. Now, here's the next big shift. Everyone is expected to think strategically. When structures flatten, the difference between a doer and a leader isn't title, it's the ability to see the bigger picture. In another word, if you want to thrive in this environment, you need to think like a leader. But what does that actually mean? It means stepping out of task mode and asking bigger questions. Why are we doing this? What's the long-term impact? How does this align with the company's direction? Strategic thinking isn't reserved for executives anymore. It's the expectation for everyone. When you understand the why behind your work, you make better decisions, you anticipate challenges, and you communicate with more purpose. And here's a secret. Strategic thinkers get noticed because they don't just execute, they elevate. And finally, let's talk about the skill that keeps you relevant no matter how much the workplace changes: continuous learning and adaptability. In a flat company, your role can evolve overnight, and your ability to keep learning is what keeps you valuable. When hierarchies shrink, job descriptions stretch. You'll be asked to wear more hats, join more projects, and solve new problems. That means the best skill you can have is the ability to keep learning. Whether it's mastering a new tool, improving your emotional intelligence, or understanding another team's process, the more you learn, the more valuable you become. Continuous learners stand out because they don't resist change, they shape it. So instead of saying, that's not my job, try, let me learn how to help. That attitude builds trust and makes you indispensable. Now let's zoom out for a moment. Flatter organizations don't mean we have fewer leaders. They mean we have more distributed leadership. Leadership is no longer defined by the number of people who report to you. It's defined by the number of people you can inspire, influence, and align. So even if you're an individual contributor, you're still leading. You lead through communication, initiative, empathy, and example. That's the mindset shift that separates top performers from everyone else in flat structures. They don't wait for authority to lead, they embody it. All right, let's put this all together. If you want to stand out in a flat organization, focus on these 3 things. First, be visible, not loud. Share updates, document wins, and connect your work to company goals without oversharing or posturing. Second, be collaborative, not competitive. Flat structures reward teamwork over turf wars. People notice when you lift others up. Third, be solution-oriented. Every company has problems. The people who grow are the ones who approach them with curiosity instead of complaint. When there's no hierarchy to climb, the only thing to build is your reputation. So build one that says, this person gets things done and makes others better along the way. All right, let's recap how to thrive when hierarchies disappear. Flat companies give you more freedom and expect more ownership. The new success skills are self-leadership, communication, influence, strategic thinking, and adaptability. Leadership is now about impact, not position. And visibility is about contribution, not noise. If you can master these, you won't just survive in a flat structure, you'll lead in it. That's it for today's episode of The Work Chat. If this episode helped you rethink how you show up in your organization, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a colleague who's adapting to a flatter workplace. And tell us in the comments, what's been the biggest challenge or surprise about working in a flatter company? Remember, when hierarchies disappear, leadership doesn't vanish. It just shifts from titles to trust. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.